London, its ancient stones steeped in whispers of history, stood in solemn silence. Beneath a soft morning sky, Anne Boleyn awaited her final moment. The air was cool, the kind that wrapped gently around the world as if to comfort it. Anne, dressed in a gown of muted elegance, held her head high with a grace that defied the weight of her fate. The quiet murmur of the gathered crowd blurred into the rustle of a gentle breeze, carrying with it the echoes of a life that had burned brightly and ended too soon. Anne Boleyn's story is one of ambition, passion, and tragedy. A life that reshaped the course of England forever. From her meteoric rise to become Queen of England, to her devastating fall from grace, Anne's journey remains one of the most captivating in history. She was a woman who dared to challenge conventions, whose intelligence and charm captured the heart of a king, but ultimately led to her downfall. Her life is a testament to the complex interplay of love, power, and betrayal that defined the Tudor court. Welcome to ASMR History, where we unravel the stories of the past with a gentle, soothing touch. Here, we explore history not as a distant echo, but as an intimate narrative that breathes life into its characters. In this space, you'll hear the quiet footsteps of time, the rustle of silken gowns, and the faint clang of swords, all woven into tales meant to calm the mind and captivate the spirit. Together, we'll navigate Anne's world, where ambition kindled fierce rivalries, and love bore the seeds of ruin. Anne Boleyn's life is a tapestry of themes: ambition that soared too high, power that proved fleeting, love that burned brightly, and loss that cut deeply. To understand how she ascended to the heights of courtly splendour, and how her life unravelled in tragedy, we must first journey back to her beginnings. To trace the roots of Anne's remarkable journey, we must step into her early life, into the world that shaped the young girl destined to leave an indelible mark on history. Nestled among the rolling hills of Kent, Hever Castle stood as a tranquil haven, its stone walls adorned with ivy, and its gardens blooming in a riot of colours. Here, in the peaceful countryside, Anne Boleyn spent her formative years. The gentle murmur of the River Eden wove through the air, a melody that accompanied her childhood adventures. Anne's laughter echoed through the castle's halls, a sound that brought warmth to the otherwise stoic manor. In the shade of ancient oaks and along sun-dappled pathways, she roamed freely, her youthful spirit as vibrant as the wild flowers that surrounded her home. The castle, though modest compared to the grand palaces of nobility, provided a sanctuary where her dreams and ambitions could quietly take root. The Boleyn family was not always destined for greatness, but ambition coursed through their veins. Anne's father, Thomas Boleyn, was a man of sharp intellect and even sharper determination. With his fluency in languages and keen diplomatic skills, he navigated the intricate webs of Tudor politics, climbing the ladder of courtly favour. He envisioned a future of influence status and prestige for his children, a vision that took root in Anne's early life. Thomas's relentless ambition was matched by a pragmatic understanding of the Tudor world. His strategic marriages, alliances, and service to the crown laid the foundation for the Boleyn family's rise to prominence. Her mother, Lady Elizabeth Howard, came from noble lineage, instilling in Anne a sense of poise and pride that would later define her presence in the royal court. Elizabeth's refined demeanour and grace set an example for her children, balancing Thomas's ambitious drive with a steady sense of decorum. Together, they raised Anne in an environment where ambition and refinement intertwined. While Hever Castle may have appeared quiet and pastoral, its walls echoed with discussions of politics, court intrigue, and the possibilities that awaited those bold enough to seize them. Anne grew up alongside her siblings, Mary and George, forging bonds that would both support and challenge her throughout her life. Mary, the elder sister, was known for her beauty and charm, qualities that often drew comparisons with Anne. While Mary's allure lay in her outward appeal, Anne's sharp wit and captivating presence hinted at a depth that would later mesmerise the English court. George, her younger brother, shared Anne's love of learning and inherited their father's sharp mind. The two siblings engaged in spirited debates and shared dreams of the future, fostering a camaraderie that would endure even as the pressures of court life tested their family's unity. In the quietude of her childhood, Anne absorbed lessons that would later guide her in the treacherous world of courtly politics. Her father emphasised the importance of knowledge, ensuring that she learned not only the skills expected of a noblewoman, such as music, dance, and needlework, but also the art of conversation and the power of persuasion. Anne became proficient in languages, a skill that would serve her well in the cosmopolitan courts of Europe. Her natural curiosity and intelligence, combined with her father's rigorous expectations, began to set her apart from her peers. Even as a young girl, Anne displayed a spark of ambition that mirrored her father's drive, though tempered with her mother's refinement. The grounds of Hever Castle became Anne's first stage, where she honed the poise and charm that would later captivate the Tudor court. In the evenings, she might have listened to tales of the wider world, stories of royal courts, and the intrigue that surrounded them. These stories, woven into the fabric of her upbringing, fueled her imagination and nurtured a yearning for something greater. She may not have known it yet, but the seeds of her future as a queen were being sown in the gentle rhythms of her early life. Despite the idyllic surroundings, Anne's childhood was not without its challenges. The Tudor period was a time of social mobility for families like the Boleyns, but ambition came with its own risks. Thomas Boleyn's relentless pursuit of favour at court meant the family's fortunes were tied to the unpredictable winds of royal politics. Anne grew up acutely aware of the importance of alliances, appearances, and adaptability. These lessons, absorbed in her formative years, would become vital tools in the competitive and often ruthless world of courtly life. Anne's relationships with her siblings also played a crucial role in shaping her character. Mary's charm served as a foil to Anne's fiery determination, and their differing paths would later highlight the complexity of the Boleyn family's place in history. Meanwhile, George's intelligence and playful camaraderie provided Anne with a confidant and ally. Together, the Boleyn children shared the weight of their family's rising ambitions, even as their individual paths diverged in ways none of them could have foreseen. Anne's journey to prominence truly began when she left the familiar comforts of Hever Castle and crossed the Channel to study in Europe. It was in this vibrant, cosmopolitan world that her intellect and charm would blossom, setting the stage for her rise to the heights of the Tudor court. Her time abroad would transform her into a woman of sophistication and allure, one who would capture the heart of a king and alter the course of English history forever. Anne Boleyn's journey to the European continent marked the beginning of her transformation from a spirited girl of Kent into a sophisticated courtly lady. At the tender age of 12, she arrived at the court of Margaret of Austria in Mechelen, where the regent of the Netherlands presided over one of the most enlightened courts of the era. The sprawling palace brimmed with the hum of scholarly discourse and the graceful murmur of music. The air was alive with Renaissance ideals, as artists, thinkers, and statesmen passed through its halls. Here, Anne's educations began in earnest, under Margaret's keen eye, which recognised Anne's sharp mind and innate curiosity. Margaret's court offered Anne more than the typical education afforded to young noble women. Anne learned to speak fluent French, a skill she would carry with her for the rest of her life. She was exposed to literature, philosophy, and the fine arts, and she absorbed the sophisticated, courtly manners that would later distinguish her at the English court. Amid the cultured surroundings of Mechelen, Anne's quick wit and vivacity began to flourish. Margaret herself once remarked on Anne's ability to learn quickly and her sharp understanding, qualities that would later define her rise in Tudor England. From the Netherlands, Anne moved to France, where her world expanded further under the tutelage of Queen Claude, the wife of King Francis I. Queen Claude's court was a quieter, more pious place than the lively French royal court, yet it was rich in intellectual and artistic pursuits. Here, Anne honed her skills in music, dance, and embroidery, but more importantly, she absorbed the refined etiquette and grace that would set her apart. She observed the subtleties of courtly interaction, learning the unspoken language of glances, gestures, and carefully chosen words. These were lessons in influence, in how to command attention without demanding it. Anne's time in France also introduced her to the burgeoning Renaissance culture that was transforming Europe. She encountered the works of poets like Petrarch and the writings of Erasmus, absorbing the ideals of humanism and intellectual curiosity, Anne grew increasingly adept at navigating the layered complexities of court life, learning when to speak and, just as importantly, when to listen. Her exposure to French fashion, with its daring elegance and understated luxury, would later make her a trendsetter at the English court. Anne carried herself with a confidence that reflected her understanding of the power of appearance, a subtle yet potent weapon in the world she would later inhabit. By the time Anne returned to England in 1522, she had been shaped by her years abroad. She was no longer a young girl from Hever Castle, but a woman of the world, with the poise and allure of a courtly lady. As historian Eric Ives aptly noted in The Life and Death of Anne Boleyn, Anne Boleyn returned from France with the poise and allure of a courtly lady. Her wit, intelligence, and charm set her apart from her peers. She had mastered the art of conversation, weaving words with an elegance that enchanted all who heard her. Anne had developed a magnetic charisma, one that drew admiration and curiosity in equal measure. Anne's polished elegance made her a captivating figure at the English court, where ambition and intrigue danced in the shadows of King Henry VIII's reign. Her years in Europe had prepared her not just to survive, but to thrive in the competitive atmosphere of courtly life. She had become a woman of substance and style, a figure who would soon command the attention of one of the most powerful men in the world. It was this transformative education, forged in the courts of Europe, that would lay the foundation for Anne's meteoric rise. Her sophistication, her intelligence, and her allure made her a singular presence, one that would ignite the passions of a king and alter the course of history. Anne Boleyn's return to the English court marked the beginning of a love story that would change the course of history. Among the glittering throngs of courtiers, Anne's sharp wit and striking presence quickly set her apart. Her dark eyes, brimming with intelligence and mystery, held an allure that was impossible to ignore. Henry VIII, then married to Catherine of Aragon, first encountered Anne during her service to Queen Catherine. She carried herself with a unique confidence, weaving through the complex world of courtly intrigue with grace and charm. Amidst the pageantry of the Tudor court, where every glance and gesture spoke volumes, Anne became an enigmatic figure in the king's gaze. Henry, known for his charisma and commanding presence, was no stranger to the attention of women. Yet, Anne was unlike anyone he had met. Her time in Europe had refined her into a woman of rare sophistication. She spoke with eloquence, moved with poise, and carried herself with an air of independence that intrigued the king. Their early interactions were marked by subtle exchanges, sharp repartees, and lingering glances that hinted at a connection growing beneath the surface. Anne's wit was as sharp as her beauty, and she quickly proved that she was more than capable of holding her own in conversation with the king. At first, Anne seemed to play the role of the courtly lady, engaging in flirtation flirtation with an air of playfulness, but as Henry's attentions became more direct, Anne drew a line that would define their relationship. Unlike her sister Mary, who had previously been the king's mistress, Anne refused to follow the same path. She made it clear that she would not settle for anything less than respect and commitment. "I shall be no man's mistress," she reportedly said, a declaration that only heightened Henry's desire for her. For a king accustomed to having his way, Anne's resistance was both frustrating and intoxicating. Henry's marriage to Catherine of Aragon posed the most significant obstacle to his pursuit of Anne. The Queen, deeply pious and beloved by the English people, had borne him a daughter, Mary, but no male heir. For years Henry had sought a solution to what he perceived as a failure in his marriage, a failure to secure the Tudor dynasty with a son. Anne's refusal to compromise her values only intensified his obsession. She was no longer just a woman he desired. She became a symbol of the future he envisioned for his realm. Henry grew convinced that Anne was destined to be his queen, the mother of his long-awaited heir. As Henry's infatuation deepened, his courtship of Anne became relentless. He showered her with gifts, from fine jewels to letters filled with declarations of love. In one such letter, he wrote, "I and my heart put ourselves in your hands," a testament to the depth of his longing. Yet Anne remained steadfast, aware that her position in Henry's life would determine her future. She wielded her influence carefully, never overstepping but never yielding. Her resolve only fueled Henry's determination to secure her as his wife. The king's obsession with Anne soon grew into a mission that would shake the foundations of England. Determined to end his marriage to Catherine, Henry sought an annulment from the Pope, citing biblical passages that condemned marrying a brother's widow, a reference to Catherine's previous marriage to Henry's late brother, Arthur. Yet the Pope, under political pressure from Catherine's nephew, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, refused to grant the annulment. What began as a personal quest for love became a political and religious crisis, as Henry's desire for Anne pushed him to defy the Catholic Church and declare his supremacy over religious matters in England. Anne, too, was navigating treacherous waters. Her position at court was both envied and resented. As the king's favourite, she was scrutinised by courtiers who whispered about her ambition and influence. Yet Anne stood firm, her eyes fixed on the future. She understood the stakes of her relationship with Henry, knowing that her ascent to queenship would not only fulfil her personal ambitions, but also reshape the kingdom. By the time Henry's resolve crystallised into action, Anne had become the centre of a storm that would ultimately lead to the English Reformation. The king's break from Rome and the establishment of the Church of England were born out of his determination to marry Anne and secure a male heir. It was a moment that changed the course of English history, marking the beginning of a new era. Anne's polished elegance, sharpened intellect, and unyielding resolve made her a captivating figure at the English court. Her rise from the daughter of an ambitious diplomat to the heart of a king's obsession was a testament to her unique blend of charm and determination. Anne's ascent to queenship began with a promise that would alter the fate of England forever. A promise forged in ambition, sealed by passion, and destined to end in both triumph and tragedy. Henry VIII's resolve to marry Anne Boleyn set in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the fabric of England. His desire to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon, a union once thought sacred, met fierce resistance from the Catholic Church. For years the Pope refused to dissolve the marriage, trapped between the demands of Henry and the influence of Catherine's powerful nephew, Emperor Charles. As the stalemate deepened, Henry's patience wore thin, and his determination unravelled the ancient ties between England and Rome. The break with the Catholic Church began not as a grand vision of reform, but as a king's desperate bid to secure the woman he loved and the heir he so desperately needed. Anne Boleyn was no passive bystander in this turbulent chapter of English history. Ambitious and astute, she understood the stakes of Henry's pursuit. She counselled the king, bolstering his resolve as he faced mounting opposition. Henry's decision to declare himself supreme head of the Church of England was as much a testament to his love for Anne as it was to his thirst for power. Anne's Protestant sympathies also played a role in shaping the Reformation. She surrounded herself with reformist thinkers and introduced Henry to texts that challenged the authority of Rome. Her influence helped shift the tide of England's spiritual and political future, cementing her place not just as Henry's muse, but as a key figure in a monumental transformation. The road to queenship was fraught with peril. Anne endured scorn from courtiers and commoners alike, who viewed her as the woman responsible for the king's betrayal of Catherine. As tensions mounted, rumours swirled, and enemies at court plotted against her. Yet Anne pressed forward, buoyed by her unshakable belief in her destiny. Her intelligence and charm, the qualities that had captivated Henry, became her armour as she navigated the treacherous waters of court politics. By 1533, Henry and Anne's relationship had reached a turning point. Anne's pregnancy, widely anticipated as the conception of a male heir, spurred the king to take decisive action. On January 25th, 1533, Henry and Anne married in a secret ceremony, an act that rendered his union with Catherine void in his eyes. Shortly after, Archbishop Thomas Cranmer formally annulled Henry's first marriage, paving the way for Anne to be recognised as queen. The political and religious upheaval that followed was unprecedented, as England's break from Rome became official, reshaping the kingdom's identity and its place in the world. Anne's coronation on June 1st, 1533, was a moment of triumph, the culmination of years of ambition, struggle, and perseverance. The streets of London were transformed into a grand stage for the new queen. summer breeze, and fragrant herbs were strewn along the cobblestones. As Anne made her way to Westminster Abbey, she sat beneath a canopy of gold, her expression composed yet resolute. The people lined the streets, some cheering with hope, others watching in sullen silence. For many, Anne symbolised a new era, while for others she represented a usurper who had displaced their beloved Catherine. The coronation itself was a spectacle of opulence and tradition. Anne wore a gown of cloth of gold, its shimmering fabric catching the light of countless candles. Upon her head rested a crown once reserved for kings, a symbol of the immense expectations placed upon her. As the Archbishop of Canterbury anointed her and placed the crown upon her brow, Anne became not just Henry's wife, but the sovereign Queen of England. In that moment, she embodied the culmination of Henry's defiance and ambition. Yet, even in the glow of her crowning achievement, Anne could sense the weight of the crown pressing down on her. The expectations were monumental: to provide a male heir, to secure the Tudor dynasty, and to navigate the fractious court that bristled with rivalries and shifting loyalties. Her position was as precarious as it was powerful, a balance that required all the wit and strength she had honed over her years in Europe and at Henry's side. Anne's journey to queenship was a testament to her resilience and ambition. She had overcome the opposition of a queen, the disapproval of a church, and the scorn of a nation to ascend to the throne. But her story was far from over. As Anne took her place on the throne, she faced challenges that would test her resolve, her influence, and her capacity to maintain her position in a court that thrived on intrigue. The crown she had fought so hard to wear came with a price, one that would soon exact a heavy toll. Anne Boleyn ascended to queenship with a crown that glittered brightly but carried an undeniable weight. As Henry VIII's queen consort, she entered a role that demanded grace, political acumen, and the fulfilment of the king's most pressing desire, the birth of a male heir. Anne embraced her new status with determination, infusing the Tudor court with her signature elegance and ambition. Yet, beneath the surface of her glittering reign, shadows began to gather, casting doubt on the longevity of her triumph. On September 7th, 1533, Anne gave birth to a child at Greenwich Palace. The air was filled with anticipation as courtiers and midwives waited to announce the arrival of the much hoped-for son. Instead, the cries of a healthy baby girl echoed through the chamber. Anne named her Elizabeth, a tribute to Henry's mother, Elizabeth of York, and the Tudor legacy. While Anne was overjoyed, certain of her daughter's greatness, Henry's disappointment was palpable. He masked his frustration behind polite congratulations, but the lack of a male heir weighed heavily on his expectations for Anne. In Elizabeth's radiant presence, Anne saw potential, a spark that would later ignite the reign of one of England's most formidable monarchs. But for now, her daughter's birth marked a bittersweet moment for a queen. Anne's queenship was defined not only by her role as a mother, but also by her vision for the Tudor court. She surrounded herself with scholars, artists, and reformers, ushering in a cultural renaissance that reflected her sophisticated tastes and progressive ideals. Anne's court became a hub of innovation and refinement. She championed the works of Erasmus and other reformist thinkers, fostering an environment where intellectual inquiry flourished. Her patronage extended to music, art, and fashion, setting trends that rippled through the English aristocracy. Anne's influence transformed the court into a stage for Renaissance ideals, blending beauty with a spirit of renewal. Her passion for religious reform was equally significant. Anne supported the translation of the Bible into English and encouraged the spread of Protestant ideals, aligning herself with the emerging reformist movement. Her position as queen gave her the platform to advocate for a more personal, accessible faith, one that challenged the rigid hierarchy of the Catholic Church. In doing so, she aligned herself with a cause that further deepened the rift between England and Rome, solidifying her place as both a visionary and a controversial figure. However, Anne's assertiveness and strong personality, the very traits that had captivated Henry, began to earn her as many enemies as allies. Her sharp wit and refusal to conform to the docility expected of women in her position often placed her at odds with the traditionalists at court. Anne was unafraid to voice her opinions, even in matters of state, a boldness that unsettled those accustomed to more subdued queens. She sparred with Henry's advisers, challenged his decisions, and remained resolute in her convictions. While her influence was undeniable, it also made her vulnerable to criticism and courtly intrigue. The Queen's enemies seized every opportunity to undermine her. Catherine of Aragon's supporters, still loyal to their displaced queen, whispered against Anne, branding her an opportunist and interloper. Even among those who initially supported her, doubts began to surface as Anne's temper and determination clashed with the expectations of her role. Her relationship with Henry, once filled with passion and admiration, began to show cracks under the strain of unmet expectations and mounting political pressures. Despite these challenges, Anne remained steadfast, pouring her energy into her queenship and her efforts to secure the Tudor legacy. She sought to fortify her position by producing the longed-for son, but her subsequent pregnancies ended in heartbreak, with each miscarriage further straining her relationship with Henry. The court buzzed with rumours, each whisper eroding the stability of her reign. Still, Anne held her head high, continuing to navigate the treacherous waters of court life with the grace and tenacity that had defined her ascent. Yet, beneath the grandeur of her queenship, the foundations of Anne's reign began to crumble. Political alliances shifted, personal loyalties faltered, and the very forces that had propelled her to power began to work against her. For Anne Boleyn, the crown that had once symbolised televised triumph now bore the weight of relentless scrutiny and unfulfilled promises. The crown Anne Boleyn had fought so hard to wear became a symbol of both triumph and relentless pressure. As queen, she bore the immense weight of expectation, none greater than the demand to produce a male heir, while her daughter, Elizabeth, was a healthy and promising child. She was not the son Henry VIII believed would secure his dynasty. Anne knew that her position was precarious, tied to the life she carried within her. Each pregnancy brought hope, but with each loss, that hope dimmed. Miscarriages, whispered about in hushed corners of court, became an unbearable strain on Anne's health, her spirit, and her relationship with the king. For a woman whose ambitions had carried her to the heights of power, the inability to meet this one expectation was a wound that cut deeply. The pressure did not come from Henry alone. The entire court seemed to watch her every move, her success or failure judged not by her intelligence or her reforms, but by her ability to deliver a son. Every celebration turned sombre when a pregnancy ended in tragedy. Every whispered condolence tinged with judgment. Anne's brilliance and charm, which had captivated Henry, now seemed less important in the face of her inability to provide an heir. Her position, once seemingly unassailable, began to show cracks as doubt and frustration seeped into the king's heart. But Anne's challenges went beyond the personal. The Tudor court was a labyrinth of ambition, rivalry, and intrigue, and as queen, she stood at its very centre. Many resented her rise, viewing her as an upstart who had displaced the beloved Catherine of Aragon. Whispers in the halls of court became daggers, aimed at the queen's heart. Old alliances turned against her, and new enemies emerged, emboldened by her struggles. The courtiers who had once flattered her now plotted her downfall, weaving a web of deceit and betrayal that slowly closed in around her. Even among those who might have supported Anne, her assertiveness created tension. Unlike queens before her, Anne was not content to remain a silent figurehead. She voiced her opinions on matters of state and religion, often clashing with Henry's advisers. Her influence over the king made her a target for those who sought power, and her fiery temperament, so alluring during her courtship with Henry, now became a liability. Every argument, every display of passion was scrutinised and used as ammunition against her. Anne's assertiveness also strained her relationship with Henry. The passion that had once defined their bond began to wane as the realities of their marriage took hold. Henry, a man used to getting his way, grew frustrated with Anne's strong-willed nature, especially as the pressures of ruling a fractious kingdom mounted. His infatuation with her was replaced by impatience, and his gaze began to wander. Anne, who had fought so hard to secure Henry's love, now found herself fighting to hold his attention. The arrival of Jane Seymour at court only deepened the rift between the king and queen. Jane, with her quiet demeanour and unassuming grace, was everything Anne was not. a stark contrast that appealed to a king weary of conflict. As Henry's attentions shifted to Jane, Anne's position grew more precarious. She must have sensed the change, the coldness that crept into Henry's words and the distance in his gaze. For a woman who had once commanded the king's undivided devotion, the loss of his affection was a bitter blow. Amid the growing tensions of court and marriage, Anne found herself increasingly isolated. The allies who had once championed her now distanced themselves, wary of the shifting winds of royal favour. The court, always a place of shifting allegiances, became an arena where Anne was surrounded by enemies who waited for the perfect moment to strike. Rumours swirled, each more damaging than the last, and Anne's every action was scrutinised for evidence of wrongdoing. The challenges of the crown had tested Anne's resilience and resolve, but they also revealed the fragility of her position, the pressures of producing an heir, the intrigues of court, and the waning affection of a king created a storm that threatened to engulf her. Beneath the glittering veneer of queenship, Anne's foundation had begun to crumble, leaving her vulnerable to the accusations and betrayal that would seal her fate. The fall of Anne Boleyn was as dramatic as her rise, a tale woven with betrayal, intrigue, and tragedy. In the spring of 1536, the Queen's enemies seized their moment. Anne, once the luminous heart of Henry VIII's court, now stood accused of heinous crimes, adultery, incest, and treason. These charges, breathtaking in their audacity, were as thin as the whispers that carried them. Yet, in the volatile atmosphere of the Tudor court, even the faintest shadow of scandal was enough to bring a queen to her knees. The accusations against Anne were rooted in a campaign to remove her from power. Her inability to produce a male heir, combined with the king's growing infatuation with Jane Seymour, made her position untenable. Anne's sharp tongue and assertive nature, once admired, had turned many against her, and her enemies at court needed little encouragement to plot her downfall. They claimed she had committed adultery with 5 men, including her own brother, George Boleyn, and had conspired to undermine the king's authority. These allegations were supported by dubious testimonies, coerced confessions, and circumstantial evidence that would crumble under scrutiny in any fair trial. Anne was arrested on May 2nd, 1536, and taken to the Tower of London. Within the cold stone walls of the tower, she awaited her fate with a grace that defied despair. Those who saw her during her imprisonment remarked on her composure, though it was clear that she struggled to comprehend the speed and cruelty of her fall. She was subjected to an ordeal that tested both her spirit and her resolve. Anne maintained her innocence, declaring in words that echoed through history, "I am clear from all guilt." Her dignity in the face of humiliation became a hallmark of her final days. The trial of Anne Boleyn was a spectacle, a grim theatre staged to justify her downfall. Held at the Tower of London, it was attended by a jury handpicked to ensure a verdict of guilt. determined. On May 15th, she was convicted of treason and sentenced to death. The verdict was not just an end to her queenship, but a stark reminder of how precarious power could be in Henry VIII's court. Anne's final days were marked by a quiet strength. Confined to the Tower, she prepared herself for the inevitable. She prayed, wrote letters, and reflected on the fleeting nature of her life's triumphs and tribulations. Her courage in the face of death inspired those around her, even her guards, who spoke of her grace and faith. Anne requested a skilled executioner from France, ensuring that her end would be swift and merciful. It was a small but poignant act of control in a situation where so much had been taken from her. On the morning of May 19, 1536, Anne was led to the scaffold erected within the Tower grounds. The sky was clear, the air still, as if the world itself held its breath. Anne ascended the platform with calm determination, her face serene despite the enormity of the moment. She addressed the gathered crowd with humility and grace, speaking words that revealed both her loyalty to Henry and her acceptance of her fate. "I pray God save the king and send him long to reign over you," she said, her voice steady. "For a gentler and more merciful prince was there never." Anne knelt before the executioner, her slender frame silhouetted against the rising sun. Her final prayer was a quiet murmur, an intimate conversation with the divine. The French swordsman, known for his precision, delivered a single, swift blow. In that instant, Anne's life ended, but her story, already etched into the fabric of England's history, was far from over. The crowd dispersed, and silence fell over the Tower once more. Anne Boleyn, the Queen, who had risen so high and fallen so far, was laid to rest in an unmarked grave within the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula. Yet her legacy would endure. Her daughter Elizabeth would one day ascend the throne as one of England's greatest monarchs. Her life, though cut short, sparked a series of events that reshaped the nation. Though Anne's life ended on the scaffold, her story was far from over. Anne Boleyn's life, though tragically cut short, left an indelible mark on history. Her most enduring legacy lies in the daughter she bore, Elizabeth, whose reign became one of England's greatest triumphs. Elizabeth inherited her mother's intelligence, determination, and unyielding spirit, qualities that defined her rule and reshaped England into a global power. As the Virgin Queen, Elizabeth fostered a golden age of culture, exploration, and political stability. Her reign was a testament to the indomitable spirit she inherited from Anne, a woman who dared to defy expectations and left a legacy far greater than her own lifetime. Elizabeth's ascent to the throne was itself a triumph of Anne's enduring influence. Against the odds, the child of a disgraced queen rose to command the respect and loyalty of a nation. Under Elizabeth's rule, England flourished, with the defeat of Anne's role in England's religious transformation would not be forgotten. Though Anne never saw the heights her daughter would achieve, the seeds of Elizabeth's greatness were sown in the strength and ambition of her mother. Beyond her role as Elizabeth's mother, Anne's life has had a profound cultural impact, inspiring countless works of art, literature, and popular culture. From plays and novels to films and television series, her story continues to captivate audiences around the world. Writers like William Shakespeare wove echoes of Anne's tragedy into their works, while modern interpretations of her life have brought new depth and complexity to her character. Anne has been portrayed as a cunning political player, a victim of circumstance, and a feminist icon, each portrayal reflecting the enduring fascination with her story. Her ability to inspire such varied interpretations speaks to the richness of her life and the timeless appeal of her journey. Anne's courage in the face of adversity remains one of her most celebrated qualities. As historian Eric Ives noted in The Life and Death of Anne Boleyn, Anne's courage in the face of adversity continues to inspire generations. From her rise as an ambitious young woman in the Tudor court to her final moments on the scaffold, Anne displayed a resilience that resonates with those who admire her strength. Her story is a reminder that even in the face of immense challenges, one can leave an enduring mark on history. Anne's historical significance extends far beyond her personal story. Her marriage to Henry VIII catalysed the English Reformation, a seismic shift that forever altered the nation's religious and political landscape. By breaking with Rome, Henry established the Church of England, a move that not only shaped England's spiritual identity, but also consolidated the monarchy's power. Anne's influence on Henry, particularly her support for reformist ideas, positioned her as a central figure in this transformation. Though her contributions were overshadowed by the drama of her fall, her role in reshaping England cannot be overstated. The changes Anne helped usher in rippled through generations, influencing not only the trajectory of English history, but also the broader Protestant movement in Europe. Her legacy as a catalyst for change underscores the profound impact an individual can have on the course of history. While her life was filled with both triumphs and tragedies, the effects of her actions echoed far beyond her time. Anne's story also serves as a powerful cautionary tale about the precarious nature of power. Her rise and fall illustrate the fragility of status in a world dominated by political intrigue and shifting alliances. Yet, even in her downfall, Anne maintained a dignity that has made her a figure of admiration and fascination. Her life reminds us of the complexities of ambition, the cost of challenging convention, and the enduring power of resilience. As we reflect on Anne Boleyn's legacy, it becomes clear that her story is not one of mere tragedy. It is a narrative of transformation, ambition, and unyielding strength. Anne's life inspired her daughter to greatness, influencing reminding us of the power of ambition, love and resilience. Through her trials and triumphs, she carved a place in history that transcends the circumstances of her death, leaving behind a legacy that will forever be remembered. Anne Boleyn's life was a brief, brilliant flame that illuminated the path of England's future. Rising from the quiet beauty of Hever Castle to the grandeur of the Tudor court, she carved a place in history through her intelligence, ambition, and unwavering determination. As Queen, she reshaped England's religious and political landscape, yet her triumphs were met with relentless challenges. Her tragic fall from grace, marked by betrayal and loss, cast a shadow over her legacy. Still, Anne's courage in the face of her fate ensured that her story would not be forgotten. At the heart of Anne's life lies a timeless interplay of love, power, and resilience. She was a woman who dared to challenge the conventions of her time, whose strength and conviction made her both revered and reviled. Her story speaks to the complexities of ambition, the fragility of power, and the enduring impact of a single life. It is a tale that resonates across centuries, reminding us of the profound ways in which courage and vision can shape the world. Anne's legacy endures most vividly through her daughter, Elizabeth, whose reign defined an era of unparalleled cultural and political achievement. In Elizabeth's strength, one can see echoes of Anne's unyielding spirit, a reminder that even in the shadow of tragedy, greatness can rise. Beyond her influence on history, Anne's life continues to inspire art, literature, and the imagination of generations, keeping her story alive in ways she could never have foreseen. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of Anne Boleyn, a queen whose spirit defied the ages. Her story is one of triumph and tragedy, strength and vulnerability, a reminder of the complexities that make history so compelling. As we reflect on her life, we are left with a deeper appreciation for the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring lessons it can teach us. As we close this chapter, imagine the quiet halls of Hever Castle, where Anne's dreams first took shape, or the solemn stones of the Tower of London, where her life came to its end. These places stand as silent witnesses to a life that changed the course of history, their walls echoing with the legacy of a queen who dared to dream beyond her time. If you've enjoyed this journey, I invite you to like, comment, and subscribe to ASMR History for more soothing explorations of the past. Anne Boleyn's story is but one of many, each filled with its own